Which came first, the rabbit or the egg? A wildlife look at Easter. Next on Kentucky Afield Radio. Rabbits are a common sight, but what we fail to see is why we attach this timid grassland creature to one of the more significant religious holidays, Easter. Wildlife biologists, if not common sense, will tell us a rabbit didn't defeat death on the cross. Rabbits don't lay eggs, they don't have the ability to carry them, and no incentive to hide them, as a squirrel would hide a nut. Our focus here is not a Sunday school lesson, but a lesson in wildlife, in this case, the rabbit, and one way it's followed the bunny trail into our customs, culture, and in what we've come to believe. A story that is sometimes chocolate, but never hollow.
We have 3 species of rabbits in Kentucky: the Appalachian cottontail, the swamp rabbit, and the eastern cottontail, which is by far the most common in Kentucky.
Brian Smith, wildlife biologist, says that rabbits have a key role in our lives and in the lives of other animals. They were food on the table for early settlers. Their hides and fur were used for clothing.
A number of predators line up to feed on rabbits: foxes, red-tailed hawks, occasional coyotes, and actually domestic cats and domestic dogs are pretty hard on rabbits as well.
Rabbits multiply like rabbits for one reason, as a means to preserve their species. In the wild, sometimes only 1 rabbit out of 10 will live to be more than a year. However, a domestic bunny rabbit in captivity may live 10 years. Brian says worldwide there are 50 species of rabbits. 3 live in Kentucky, and close to another 50 different breeds of domestic rabbits.
The domestic rabbit is a species that developed out of one single species out of Europe. It's called the European rabbit, and basically it led to all the breeds that we see today: the dwarf rabbits, the long-haired rabbits.
It changes all the time, but right now there's about 48 accepted breeds.
Vern Douglas, a judge at the expansive rabbit exhibition at the Kentucky State Fair. Vern says the American Rabbit Breeders Association has standards for each of its sanctioned breeds, all rabbits that bear little resemblance to their wild ancestor.
Most of your domestic rabbit would not survive in the wild. They wouldn't be adapted to it like your snowshoe bunny in the wintertime. He turns white so he can blend in with the snow, but in the summer he's brown. These guys couldn't do that.
Another thing a rabbit can't do is lay eggs.
There are a couple of mammals that actually do lay eggs. They're one of the strangest animals you'd probably ever see, the duck-billed platypus, and then there are 2 species of echidnas. All of them are restricted to Australia and New Guinea.
Eggs also are a wonderful symbol of fertility. From any egg is going to spring new life.
Laurie Davison is director of the Salado Wildlife Education Center in Frankfort. So just how did the idea of an Easter rabbit and Easter eggs come about?
The origins of Easter go way back, beyond Christian tradition. We think as far back as the celebration of the Festival of Spring, which was a Saxon festival celebrating rebirth and celebrating their goddess Estra.
She says it's easy to see how Estra time became translated into Easter time.
There are a variety of other words which ought to be familiar. Estrus, the period of heat that animals experience during their breeding season. There are also words like estrogen that derive from Estra.
Easter is a lunar holiday. It is the first Sunday following the first full moon of spring.
You are, in fact, celebrating springtime, the birth of animals, and also being alive. Resurrection really is more than just a Christian tradition. You're seeing it in all aspects of life in the spring.
These festivals, reveling in the rebirth of spring, adopted an earthly symbol.
Rabbits are prolific breeders. It's very easy to adopt them as symbols of fertility.
In a good year, they can produce 30 to 50 young.
Other variations of the Easter story exist, but the cast and characters of rabbits, eggs, and the celebration of spring and new life connect them all. Though we still have Easter egg hunts and Easter parades, modern society no longer worships a goddess, but we still call upon our old friend nature to add a certain pizzazz. From Christmas trees to bats and spiders at Halloween to flowers on Mother's Day, nature and wildlife give life to our human celebrations, just as a turkey at Thanksgiving or a rabbit at Easter. And while their connection may not be readily understood, if we look, the meanings are as colorful as eggs when we find them. Kentucky Afield Radio is a broadcast service of the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, your partner in the great outdoors.